been to a Mobile Monday event before? Cool, so we got a lot of newcomers. Raise your hand if you have not been, but you know what Mobile Monday is. Alright, so for those of you who didn't raise your hand, Mobile Monday is the event you're at tonight, just FYI. What we do is we bring together everyone in the industry so we can share knowledge, get to know each other, network, and talk about relevant topics in mobile. So we are Mobile Monday, Silicon Valley. There's about 9 of us who organize. And really what we want to do is bring together entrepreneurs, investors, designers, developers, business people, visionaries, everyone who has a mobile interest, and bring them together into the same meet space so we can all hang out. 10 years ago, or 12 at this point, we were founded in Helsinki. And what's really interesting about Mobile Monday is a worldwide organization. There's 900 chapters in every single metropolitan area in the world. So if you're ever looking for an event on a Monday in a foreign city, I'll bet you there's a Mobile Monday you can attend. And every single chapter is the same goals. We're really just a community education group here, so everyone can meet each other, we can talk about things, and bring awesome panels and magicians together. So there's over 100,000 members around the world, of which you are all 250. And around the world we throw 900 events. So it's a really awesome organization. We throw an event every month here at Mobile Monday, Silicon Valley. And there's a lot of other chapters around the country that do the same. So this is a list of all our chapters. If you're ever in one of these cities, you can hit up the Mobile Monday. And Mobile Monday America is the group that we're a part of. There's chapters in every major metropolitan area here. And we usually throw events like this, where there's 300 of you who are interested in a given topic about mobile. So we do these big events. We also do Mobile Monday Labs, which are developer-centric events. Raise your hand if you're a mobile developer. Like 7 of you. So we throw Mobile Monday Labs. It's a developer-centric event focused on topics related to running mobile businesses. So we know you know how to code. We're not going to teach you how to code. But what you might not know how to do is do monetization, user acquisition, retention, those types of things. So those are smaller events. We also throw Mobile Monday CXO dinners. So we bring 25 of the top CXOs in the Valley together with some interesting investors, have a nice dinner. There's a bunch of us around the room, so I'm just going to let them raise their hand. If you wouldn't mind raising your hand if you're a part of the Mobile Monday team. There's Mario over there. Jose. In the back we have Ryan, Brandon, Space Monkey Mike, and Artie. And John Lynn here working the camera. So we throw events at a number of venues around the Valley. This is Adobe, obviously. Here's some previous sponsors. And if you ever need to get in touch with us, you can join our Mido group, mobilemonday.us. And you can also get to us on Twitter. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Ovalle, who's going to be championing the panel this evening. And we have 5 fantastic panelists coming up, so if they could all come up here right now, we can get seated and get talking about how to make some real money with mobile gambling.
Awesome.
Hey guys, how are you? It's actually bad form to try and follow a comedian, but we're going to do it anyway. Gaming, gambling, a lot of issues, a lot of things to talk about. Instead of asking you guys to raise your hands on what you play with respect to betting, gambling, social games, let me see a show of hands for people that are doing real money betting. Yeah? Online, okay. Well, actually, let's do this because I don't want to call you people out. So, Jeremiah was talking about this too. Since we're close to Halloween, we were thinking about, instead of raising your hand, maybe just grunt like a zombie, and then we can kind of see the room here. So, who's playing virtual currency games? Kind of like Farmville virtual currency games.
Grunt, guys.
Grunt. There we go, a couple here. All right, who's playing sports fantasy games? Like FanDuel, that's real money. Grunt. You grunt. No, we got it. And then, well, the other thing is that who's playing things like slot machines, Poolbit, which is one of the companies we were talking about, and virtual currency. Not that many? All right. Yeah? Okay. And obviously, casino genre seems to be highly popular all of a sudden. So, do you guys have a microphone? So why don't we start on the left here with Wynn? I'm gonna introduce each one of the panelists, and then they're gonna give us a little 30-second description on their company and who they are and how they're gonna be exciting and fun up here. Wynn Wu, why don't you kick it off?
Name is Wynn Wu. I work at a company called Playstudios, and our title game on Facebook right now is called My Vegas. Virtual slot game. There's a build component to it. We can see Vegas being built out to Ovalle, and we're partners with MGM. And the most unique part of our game is you get to accrue loyalty points in which you can go then to Vegas and redeem for tickets, rooms, dining. So real rewards. You can play virtually and get real rewards in Vegas. So fun concept.
Cool, thanks. You guys got to share a microphone. And Ken Arnold.
I'm Ken Arnold. I'm with a company right now doing individual investing through Banded Angels for great companies, passionate entrepreneurs. But before that, I started 4 software companies. The last one sold poker software, and this is real money poker software sold to licensed operators in Europe. It was then bought by a group affiliated with the station's casino in Las Vegas.
And Gabi from Betable. Woo! Hey,
Thank you.
yeah.
Appreciate it. My name's Javier. I'm at Betable. We're a platform for real money gaming, allowing any developer to access the real money gaming space with our licensing platform. Before this, I was at Zynga, running the With Friends, Words with Friends, and Scramble with Friends mobile franchises. We have
Carey's mic? Wow. Are you going to be doing some dance moves later?
I wish I could beatbox, because
Okay.
I would try to lay it down.
Carey Dijulio with Big Fish.
Hi, I'm with Big Fish, and when I'm not a magician's assistant, I run the casino division. Obviously, we're a large PC-backed publisher. We have over 3,000 games on our site and over 1.5 billion downloads. We also have 300 iOS games, 100 games on Android. I run Big Fish Casino, which is cross-platform, Facebook, Android, iOS. It's actually number 3 grossing on the iOS charts at this moment. So it's a big product for us, and we're really excited to be in this space.
Awesome, thank you. And last but not least, John Ford with Van Software.
Hi, we run a real money games platform in the U.S. of doing what you can legally do in the U.S. today. So we do a platform for pari-mutuel wagering on racing, horse racing, and also a platform for real money betting on fantasy games, fantasy sports, as well as other live events.
So actually, why don't we kick it off and just talk about what's currently legal here in the U.S. with respect to either online or mobile and real money betting. So John, you want to kind of talk to us about that?
I do suffer from being a recovering attorney, so I have to forgive me in that regard. But really the legislation that was passed about 5 years ago in the U.S. Trying to prohibit illegal online gambling gave 2 primary exemptions from that prohibition law. One was wagering on racing, racetracks, greyhound racing, horse racing. And the other exemption is what's commonly referred to as fantasy sports, although it's really fantasy events. So it's where the prizes are determined in advance, where people use their skill and knowledge to try to guess the outcome of individual performance, and where the prize is given based upon the performance of individuals in live events. So the most common one is fantasy football. You pick your players for this year. You see how they perform. They get points during the season, and the guy with the most points at the end of the season wins. There's now a developing industry of daily and weekly fantasy games, where you can also pay money, pick players, and win a prize.
So, Ken, I was asking you about this earlier. So what happened with poker here in the U.S.? Last year, the year before, now we've got a bunch of people that are wanted by the FBI living in islands. But they were doing it here, at scale for a while. So what happened?
Well, online poker was invented about 10 years ago, and it took off. And the leadership changed hands. Planet Poker, Paradise Poker, Party Poker, all sort of came and went. And then Poker Stars and Full Tilt did very well. When the United States made it clearly illegal, as opposed to just unregulated and probably illegal, but nobody was getting arrested. Most people pulled out of the market. All the public companies did. Party Poker was a large public company. They IPO'd and were immediately in the 100 largest public companies in the UK market. So they decided they'd pull out because they were a public company. Full Tilt decided to stay in, and they benefited. They became huge, very profitable. And then one day, people woke up and found that Poker Stars, their owners, Full Tilt, their owners, and a couple of others were all indicted. And they shut them down, and they shut down the websites and effectively really turned it off. So what the law didn't do, the enforcement action did do. And the poker industry was essentially out of business in the US. There's still a few sites that will take US players, but poker players found they just couldn't play. A lot of them moved out of the country. Others got proxy servers so they could play as if they were out of the country. And everyone was anticipating that there would be a legal poker regime. Why? Because Full Tilt and Poker Stars, between them, were pulling $1 billion a year out of the US. No taxes, no licenses, etc. So with the latest recession, people felt, well, governments are going to be looking for money, and this would be a good way to do it since Americans have taken to online poker. So the US has been on the verge of regulating poker within 18 months to the last 5 years. The only time that forecast has ever been right was when people said, if it doesn't happen about a year ago, it won't happen before the presidential election. And now that we have a presidential election and people are going to deal with a huge budget problem, there's a feeling that there may be legalization of poker. Question, will it be federal? Will it be state? Lots of opinions. I don't think anyone really knows yet, but
So
it's likely to happen.
Yeah, if I had to ask you guys, what do you think? I mean, there's, like you said, there's a lot of moving parts. And there's a lot of people for and against it to happen here in the U.S. But let's talk about the U.S. before we go to, the UK, the markets that it's legal and it's been ongoing for a while. So when do we think, and let's just not talk about poker, but real money gaming being legal digitally, because we were talking we had a call before this, just that there were no surprises. I was thinking 24 to 36 months out. And my rationale was, states have huge budget shortfalls. And gaming generates a lot of revenue, and the states participate in that. But there's some people that don't want it to happen too. Like, they have specific concessions and compacts, like the Indian tribes, right? They would much rather have you get in your car and drive to their reservation, and there's no unification between the Indians either. There's rich tribes and poor tribes. So what do you guys think? I'd love to hear from all of you on what do you think is going to happen here in the U.S.?
IGT said today that they think it's going to happen in 2013, and I agree with them. I think we'll see some state by state maybe next year. Obviously Nevada and Delaware are already in the game, but we won't see anything on a large scale. So liquidity will always be an issue until we get some federal regulation, or the states regulate the same levels that you play across state.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it'll proceed at the federal level. The federal level legislation is really designed to support the Nevada gaming companies. And there is a lot of pushback on that effort from the tribes as well as from other gaming interests. So I think the more likely scenario is state by state. But that's not even easy either. I mean, just look in California, you've got the tribes, the racetracks, the card clubs, all want a piece of that intrastate online poker game. And, their group just fell apart, within the last month, just unable to agree on how the legislation should proceed. And so that's kind of typical in the other states where state vested interests are trying to get the advantage. So I think it's just very hard to predict. I do think that states will be more likely to do it before the federal government, but, it's politics, so.
Okay. So, for the sake of tonight's discussion, everything about real money gaming, we'll probably have to focus on UK or European markets. So, yeah, Bing, what do you think?
Well, as John said, I think it's very political. I think the market's really waiting, the existing political lobby is waiting for some solution for them to benefit from online gambling legalization. So, currently the land-based casinos are really worried about, well, if we legalize, online gambling, will people still come to the casinos? It's an obvious concern. So they're really looking for a way that they can profit from people coming to their casinos and then being able to still make profit when people leave, which is impossible today. I think that that's, if there is a solution for both like sort of the tribal casinos and like Las Vegas and the riverboat casinos, I think that'll make it much more likely to happen. But I'm pretty sure that, poker will be first, and that seems like it will take, years to happen as well. So I don't see it happening quickly.
We've been seeing a lot of movement where states are being accommodating in acquiring new revenues. For instance, I just learned this the other day, in New York State, slot machines are illegal, but video lottery terminals, which are basically slot machines powered by a central server, are fully legal. So that's how they get around that. Or a riverboat casino, the building with a moat around it. It's never going to go sailing, but they can't do land-based ones, so we'll see that happen. So I want to go back to you just for 1 second, because so if we've got to go offshore, if we've got to go to another jurisdiction, like the UK, you need to get licensed. So what is that process? Because if you guys are developing games here, it's pretty easy. Well, it's not easy, but the fact that you put a team together and you make great game mechanics and a great game, and you get it on Facebook and you use proper marketing channels, then that's the only thing between you and some success. Obviously, acquisition and discovery is a challenge, but there's no licensing, there's no on deck circle, there's no legislation that you need to go through. But what do we have to do if we go outside the U.S.?
Sure. Well, it's a fairly protectionist regime. There's obviously a lot of money around it. It's very, very political. In the UK, which a lot of these gambling operators are based out of, it's a very painful process. One would think that you'd be able to sort of buy your way into the market if you acquire a company. It's not really true. It at minimum generally takes about 18 months for at sort of the fastest pace for anyone to get a license. Even if you were to acquire a company, you would have to go through the same sort of invasive regulatory approval, and that means that sort of everyone with a controlling interest in your company would have to go through essentially detailed financial and sort of background checks. And that's pretty difficult, the larger you get especially. On top of that, it costs millions of dollars to get a license. There aren't that many license holders. That's a fairly high barrier, especially for a lot of game companies who are just starting out and won't need to spend that money on marketing. Player acquisition, it's very difficult. So it's really not ROI positive for any one company to do it on their own, even if they are large, just because of the time risk, and the sort of risk factor involved in getting if you are a public company, for instance, getting everyone sort of cleared through that process. It could mean that you have to get your board of directors through, or all of your executive staff, which is generally someone on the executive panel will not want to do that.
So I guess the option is partnering with somebody that has a license, like yourself, or you just left Zynga. So they're going a different route. They're partnering with, I can't remember who. You guys know?
They announced a partnership with Wynn. That's right.
Yeah, so,
Wynn.
Is it Wynn? Thanks, Greg. So Wynn's got scale. Wynn has users, they have payment infrastructure. So is it just a matter of turning it on?
The Wynn arrangement generally, a lot of these operators are vertically integrated. And so what that means, a little bit of background, there's an operator license, and then there's a online, a software license. And there's different levels of being able to really operate a gambling game. So you have these vertical operators that, for instance, Wynn has their own, poker pool but they also have they also run slot machines for other operators. But generally, it's more of a licensing agreement, which means that they'll take licensed IP, let's say a Deal or No Deal, or let's say Zynga's poker game, and then they'll operate it themselves with their technology stack. They generally don't create their technology at all. They sort of contract it out to some sort of quote-unquote third string like game developers, and sort of white label a game and put their name on it, which means that the products are generally not that scalable or not that interesting compared to sort of innovations going in the marketplace right now. And that means every step of the way there's all these middlemen that take away a lot of the proceeds. So when you say Zynga's doing BWin, I mean I think that's one problem of their strategy. I think they probably in general Zynga fashion want to look at a number of different strategies and try to see what works. As far as Betable goes, I think it's sort of more of a modern technology platform where we understand the cloud, we understand what game developers need in terms of analytics and ROI, and we serve that market in a much more direct fashion than say just business deals and licensing agreements and then waiting for BWin to hopefully publish something that kind of does your brand justice.
Okay, that's great. Hey, so we'll get back to the quality of games in a minute because I think that's a way that a lot of us here compete over there. So let's talk about the differences between a virtual currency player and maybe a real money player. So why don't we just talk about what are some characteristics of a virtual money player, which I think a lot of us here would be more familiar with respect to how much they spend, LTV on a game, how much time they spend in a typical social game, how we acquire them. You guys have any thoughts? No? Really? You guys, come on. We're dying up here. Nobody? Anybody? You can hand that thing over. It's like a hot potato. Can't jump in it strong.
Okay, so in real money gaming,
we can go to real money too because there's a big difference, you guys, between the two of them. Because I think one of the things we were talking about is if you just turn your game into a real money game, everybody's going to be a millionaire. Well, you can have success in both arenas, and they just have different financial profiles and different LTV profiles. We can.
So in real money gaming, I would say player acquisition and retention is overwhelmingly the name of the game. And people will pay $100 if you can deliver a new player who will deposit and make a bet at a poker room or an online casino. And that's a real business. It's been a real business for a long time. And at the peak, you can get $350 for delivering a poker player. And it's not that different than like a mobile phone model or a cable TV model. If they can keep them there long enough, they'll make their money back and make a good return on it. But those players have to get paid off in real money. The social players don't have to get paid off in real money. So the leverage in the model is tremendous. And I think the most exciting part of the social one is that if you develop a huge pool of play for fun players, like the Zynga pool, you can then say, hey, Party BWin, maybe I can get these guys to play on your real money site, and then they're worth a couple $100 a piece. So there's a tremendous way to monetize in big numbers if you can get social players and get them to switch over.
Is a lot of the real money customer acquisition through affiliate networks?
Yes, real money players are often brought through affiliate networks. And if you go to, you Google, how do I play poker? You'll find lots of wonderful, rich websites that give you all sorts of good content, and they're full of ads that say, try this poker room and you'll get a $1,000 bonus. That's it. They're trying to get you to click on that, sign up for the poker room, and then they'll get paid either a very big percentage, generally the lion's share of what you spend at that poker site, or else they'll just get a one-time fee, which will be over $100. And that's why you find that. all those great sites out there.
So very different than a mobile install that you pay for here. 50 cents to $2 to when free goes crazy. It throws it up to $5-6. So okay, that's interesting.
But yeah, I can jump in on sort of differences between real money players and social players. So we are a close partner with MGM Resorts International, and so they have a portfolio of 10-11 properties in Vegas. And what we do is we acquire customers socially and provide them with loyalty points so they can go redeem gifts in Vegas. So part of the model is, can we translate the social gamers into real money casino gamers? We've started this process for a couple of months, so it's too early to say definitively, but it seems like it's pretty profitable. So we've had a couple thousand reward purchases right now, and we've had a couple hundred redemptions right on the property, and we've been tracking the stats right through from how profitable, what their game characteristics are online, through to what their game characteristics, how they spend in the casino with MGM. Early signs showed it's a worthwhile deal, and it's been great.
So we were just talking about the Venn diagram. Does it overlap with both the real money people and the virtual currency players?
I think it does, but we just don't know how far it does. So I think there's probably different psychographic sort of needs on either side of it. There might be people who enjoy playing for virtual currency but don't really want to play for real money, and there might be people that find virtual currency boring unless there's real money involved. And there's sort of different satisfaction you get out of the wins on each side. And there's definitely an overlap. We just don't know the size of it at this point.
And we've been, we were chatting on the call, and we get marketing help from Jim also. So some of the most productive players we see come from the real money world. They go home. We don't know whether it's because there's no outlet for legal slot. It's online in the States right now. Or if it's something else. But if it becomes legal, they just suddenly want to migrate away from us and go to that sort of medium or these days. It's pretty interesting to see that.
So speaking of Venn diagram, so we're just talking about these worlds kind of intersecting. So if you guys were aware, IGT, who makes slot machines, bought Double Down Casino, or when was that? January or something? About a couple million Facebook users. They bought it for $500 million. That was their first foray into social games. And very close on the heels of that, or maybe even a little before, Harrah's, Caesars Entertainment, bought Playtika, which also did virtual casino and virtual slot machines on Facebook. I think they maybe had 1 million users. They bought them for somewhere between 80 or 100 million. So they obviously need to learn how to play in that world. And we were talking about competing on things like production quality. So we heard a little bit about the quality of the white label, genericized games that the real money portal, they're basically portals. They just have traffic, and it's just like, give me a game, give me a game, give me a game, I'll put it on there. So talk about what are the craftsmanship that we have here which might be a competitive advantage?
Well, I think there are really two things. One is the production value, and you see that escalating on iOS and on Facebook. And as game developers, we know how to make games fun. So we have a lot of the metagame, we have a lot of that rich experience that people from the real money world don't necessarily have. I think the second part of it is just speed. If you're a real money operator and you have maybe 4 competitors and everyone's moving fairly slowly and it takes you 18 months or more to put a slot machine into a land-based casino, you're not used to operating at the speed that we all operate with as game developers. And I think that's where both the license times that y'all being talked about and just having that flexibility and ability to innovate faster than anyone else is still really an advantage in this space.
Yeah, I definitely echo. In terms of the acquisitions, it seems like the traditional casino operators really want content, right? They want content faster. If you look at the industry as it stands right now, a lot of the licenses, there's only so many people that can make slot machines because in the past they were physical, they were licensed, and even today they take, each slot machine box costs maybe $15,000 from IGT. And they take maybe 18 months to be certified and to actually make it to the casino floor. That's not really the speed of business anymore. So it's kind of crazy. You look at, you go down to a show, like at a casino show. I mean, the thing that really shocked me, being a newbie kind to this area was that half of the booths in the casino, the convention hall, they're for like, they're for comfortable stools, and they're for like confetti guns that will shoot stuff out when you win, and they're for like lit floors, and like there's not that much innovation going on, and there's only a few there's only a couple of people there that actually make the games, and you look at what they're doing to innovate on the games, and they're just slapping 60-inch plasmas or LCD screens on the same game, and making like that sort of bonus game like really high def. But like there's no interaction. Like half the time that screen is just like sitting there, and like there's no game to it, and any game part is still perceived. So at the end of the day, I can see why these companies are really starved for content, because they haven't really had a new game concept in decades, really. And they'll stick like a Plants vs. Zombies license on something, but it's weird, dude. Like you only need to play the game if you every let's say 5 minutes if you win. That's not really the core of the game. I mean, it's really not that different.
So about game quality, I think it's one of our, my Vegas, one of our competitive advantages that we think as a later entrant to the market, we're delivering a very, unique and well-crafted game. So every one of our games is crafted from scratch at our studios. Currently we're not doing any templating, we don't do any sort of, let's just take this engine, put some new art on it, and call it a new game. We think players look for that uniqueness in each game. We have a game which you make a movie in, we have a game where you're a prince and you're trying to get to the princess, and there's different mini games inside of it. And then on top of that, we have the virtual Vegas strip in the back, in which that's just the start of a lot of possibilities that we're going to start unlocking in terms of engagement with the strip, clicking different casinos, different cars. So, the interaction that we can bring faster.
I was just going to say one thing, is that, I agree with everything you guys have said. The mechanic of some of the gaming things, there's no innovation, but the mechanic seems to work within the id. So for instance, Ken's an investor in a company that makes Cool Bits that does uses virtual currency for slot machines on Android. And when I first met with him, I'm like, that's all it does? You're kidding, just that? And Gerard, who's the ex-CEO of Betfair in the USA, is a great guy, he couldn't make it tonight. He said, Ovalle, 70% of the casino's revenue are from slot machines. Now, I don't know, it's not going to appeal to everybody, but that mechanic just works. There's not a new little kind of,
There is innovation going on.
Yes.
I mean, there's innovation going on. There's new games always coming out. And I think there's another opportunity for innovation here in the US of really using the model of what we can legally do here, using innovation to create new games that you can slice and dice into the legal framework here in the US. So innovation can play a big role, I think, currently in what we can legally do in the US instead of, waiting years for virtual slots to come.
Well, just to give a contrary point of view, I'll tell you the reasons that you can't compete with the big guys in these games. There are three big ones that make slot machines. They each spend about $100 million a year in what they call R&D, which is developing 30 new titles. They pay seven-figure license fees to license properties like the superheroes, Monopoly, Cleopatra, that kind of stuff that attracts players. They have very high quality art and animation that's very expensive, and technology hasn't made a whole lot cheaper. On the other hand, they are big and slow, and they don't do anything to hook in to your social graph. So gambling with a slot machine is a very solitary experience.
Especially when you bring it online. I mean, you sit at a casino, you're playing it solitary, but someone near you gets a big win. All of a sudden, everyone's looking, and it's a social experience, right? You don't get that when a lot of these big players bring stuff online. But Big Fish Casino, we're a multiplayer, synchronous experience. You're always playing with someone else. You know when someone you're sitting with has a jackpot, you can congratulate them. There are games that we have where you're actually playing with other people, and you share those jackpots. And I think those are some of the ways that you bring that fun of the casino to an online experience.
And people have tried to do these virtual world, Second Life type of casinos, but I don't think anyone's really brought one out yet that is immersive.
Except for ours.
Second Life, I haven't heard that in a long time. Remember when people were spending like $500,000 to build an island and like 3 people would show up? So listen, we're gonna wrap it up here in a minute, but this is Mobile Monday, so I have to ask you guys this. Give me really quickly, what are your favorite mobile apps that you guys are playing around with right now? Pass it around.
I got 2. One of my favorite games is Beat Leader. Really simple mechanic, but takes advantage of the mobile interface really well. And the other one is Prismatic News Feed Reader. It's just awesome, clean, really very nice.
Staying with mobile games, on Android, it would be City Slots, which is the cool big project that you mentioned. Virtual slots. On iOS, during the World Series, I got involved in a new one called Bunker Mode. And Bunker Mode is sports betting for your friends. Basically, you bring in your social graph and you do sports betting for virtual coins. That's been a lot of fun.
Sure, I was going to say Prismatic, just checking out the out-of-box experience, but looks like not alone there. Certainly keeping up with my fantasy football right now with Yahoo. Unfortunately, it was down this weekend. That was embarrassing. Playing a little bit of Hero Academy. I think it's kind of like new chess, and I think it has a long way to go. In terms of retention. And what else? I do like, I know Carey likes Triple Town. I've been playing some Jumps with Friends, although it doesn't seem like it has the exact same power of the previous titles.
My nephew likes to say I have a bear problem when he catches me playing Triple Town, and that's coming to everything. I'm not allowed to say the one that stuffed up my whole weekend because it's a big fish game, but it's called Plunder. It's awesome. Didn't prepare for this at all because I was playing all weekend. The other one that I like checking out right now is called Twist. It's kind of a geo-fencing, and it tells you people when you're arriving and when they're coming to you. So it kind of communicates to your friends for you.
Yeah, just to get away from the games for a second, my one that I'm using more frequently these days is Tracker, which keeps track of my 50-year-old through his phone, and I know where he is, and where he's tagging, and where he's getting into trouble. So that's a common use for me.
What's the best place that you've tracked your fishing?
Some very dark places.
I've been using one called Delectable. I like to drink wine, but I always forget what I drank. So it takes a picture of the label and it actually enters that into the app. So I don't have to, dude, what was that wine? The third bottle we had? You always forget that one. But you can follow sommeliers too. They're still working on the social stuff. It's not totally good, but it's like, there's so much wine out there. That's tough. And then my kids like the Rayman Run. The animations are good on that. It's really nice. So you guys, was there anything we didn't cover? So I'm going to go to questions real quickly. Anybody got a question? Yes.
The mobile apps in casino, that seems to be a big area of revenue for casinos, or a big area that the casinos are not covering currently. So that means in casino.
So if you're in a casino, are there apps that are just
Like
germane to
your slots on the iPad in the restaurant and the casino. There's definitely some products coming out that do that in some of the more regulated states, and there's some licenses in Nevada for that kind of thing. But
John?
Yeah, so on the app side, when you get into the real money gambling in the U.S., Apple is a little bit fearful of it, so we've challenged the battle with Apple to get an app through, and I will be successful at it. But there's, on the fantasy side, I'm doing games on real events. I think that it's eminently doable, and there'll be more coming for sure.
John, does Apple not understand that this is legal?
They kind of, but it needs to be beat into them.
Got it. Okay.
Over at the Venetian, they have some sports betting mobile platforms you can carry around within the casino. We at Playstudios, we have a sister company called Carey, which is actually trying something a little different. We have a mobile app in which you scan QR codes, which gives you free spins on a wheel in which you can win actual rewards like dinner and rooms, or you can win My Vegas points. So it's kind of like looking at, again, our effort to try to acquire real money users, bring them into our world right now, and see how they perform and be ready for that next step in the complex. Cool, watch that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of in-casino apps, there's a lot of experimentation going on right now. A lot of the casinos are building out the sort of closed Wi-Fi networks. I think they need to make sure that's secure. There's a lot of fear around sort of the technology in the casino space. I attended a panel discussion at G2E about server-based gaming, and they were all very, I think the people that are behind server-based gaming, which means basically they have a server in the casino, and then they allow patrons to download an app to their iPad or iPhone and play when they're taking a smoke break or in the bathroom or something. I guess in their room. They have been sort of moderately successful. I don't think they've caught on fire. I think the friction to download is pretty big. The tech challenges are big. Probably get around that a little bit by providing people iPads in room and that kind of thing. I think that makes sense. I think casinos certainly want to, for instance, leverage that to sort of have cashless gaming, because anytime you have to walk up to the cashier and put $20 down and walk around with a cup full of chips, it's painful, and they can't track as easily unless you sign up for a card. So there's a lot of experimentation going on. I think the current players in that market aren't super sort of user experience focused, so I think that will continue to have a lot of friction.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So you guys talked about Zynga and its large base of free players. A lot of the U.S. casino games have large cryptocurrency bases. What do you guys think about the opportunity of converting those players to players? How real is that opportunity? And how is it
If I can repeat that, so what are the chances of converting virtual currency players to real money players? Meaning, how hard is that? What has to be done to get them to live in both worlds? Because I think they'll probably always have a foot in both. I don't know. Who wants to take a crack at that?
I mean, I think if you're talking about in the U.S., at the current time, you have to get them to go to a land-based casino, or you have to get them a slots player interested in fantasy sports or horse racing. In the UK, we have Big Fish Casino UK that actually allows you to do real money betting right within the products. You can play on the virtual side, or you can go and play for real money, so users can easily go back and forth. And I think that's going to be the future.
Jurisdictions where it's legal, it's pretty easy to do.
So, can you speak about your success in converting the virtual players to real money?
I think it's really early. My belief is that there's a Venn diagram. I don't know how wide it is yet, but it's really early for us. We're only out a couple weeks.
This is the holy grail.
Yeah.
When somebody figures that out, we're going to have very good business.
Yeah, but if you look back to the poker model, the foreign poker model, is that of the free players that are out there, there's a very small percentage that are playing for real money, except they're making all their money off those real players. So I don't think the crossover is that big, but when you get them over there, they're big money. That's big money. But if you look at the statistics of online poker, 3 to 4% of those people ever play a real money game.
Yeah, that's a good point. You guys might not be aware, but you go to a lot of the sites in the UK, and you can play for free what they call practice with virtual currency for as long as you want. And then the idea is it gets you comfortable with the game, and then you go in there and you pay real money. But it is a small conversion that people see. And that's why, especially people based in the UK, have the belief that they're really two separate markets. I'm in the belief that there is some overlap, but we'll see. I think they're both very viable markets on their own, and they're both great places to be.
Yeah, I guess from my previous experience with Zynga, I'd say they're just, it's weird. I think there's this misnomer that you can easily divide the market. I think social media hits everyone. So if you're big enough, if the social media market and the social media games hit everyone, I think that it's obviously there's a few ecosystem factors at play when you talk about conversion, right? I think on the virtual currency side, you get a ton of players, and then you have to convince people that there's value in the virtual currency, right? That they run out of currency and they want to play again. And it makes sense in casino games because if you're out of money, you can't play, and you know that, and you want to play. On the other hand, logically speaking, if you've been playing for sort of no potential to get money out, it's not hard to imagine people rationally saying that, well, I'd like to at least have a chance, you know. So I think that, you know, I wouldn't say it's necessarily about conversion. I'd say it's more about just reaching the biggest audience possible, and then making sure that you know, sort of monetize off of, on one side, on the people that don't really want to put money at risk, are a little bit timid, maybe don't know how to play, or just want to play for real, or play for virtual goods. On the other side, people that are already playing for real money have that tendency, that value that you can offer them an instant upsell, right? It's in the app, it's something they're comfortable with, which generally speaking, like these vertically integrated players in the UK spend like millions and millions of dollars marketing so that you know their brand, right? They advertise on soccer jerseys, you know, they're all over the place, right? That's a lot of money, right? And for people that already trust a game that they're familiar with, I think it's a lot lower cost of making them feel comfortable, which means that, you know, with an economic advantage, I believe that that entire the ecosystem of developers will win eventually.
I mean, we look at it just as another option you provide, right? So you want your players to play with you, and you want to give them as many options as they can to play with you and play the games they love.
So I think in real money, the question is really about retention. When I worked at Wynn, we always had this thing about, hey, what if that guy walks across the street from Nisha to Georgia Island? What if that guy walks? So our retention, physical land-based casino, was giving them comps, giving them tickets and food and comps like that. And now it gets even harder because they have that physical barrier of walking. Nobody wants to walk, right? In the virtual world, I can just pop over and to a URL, but I don't feel like, and slot players are very sort of superstitious about their games. I don't feel like this game is paying out. I'm just going to go somewhere else. So it's about retention of people in that opens up. That's a game we're all going to have to.
One more point on the social and real money is that there could definitely be a social component, and a big social component to real money gaming. We just ran an election game that was a fantasy game, but built on picking a presidential candidate, 3 Senate candidates, 3 House of Representative candidates, 2 governorships, and you built your team of candidates. And there was really kind of an interesting thing that happened of people, we gave off double prizes if people voted and sent in their voting receipts and stuff. And what really happened is that it became a very social, real money game. So that people were winning real money, but they're sending in pictures of their kids at a polling place, and there's really it was a very nice social component to that real money game. So there's a lot of opportunities out there, I think, of trying to craft things that use those social aspects, but getting into some real money.
I think the key to social in gaming retention is really just being social at the core of the game. And so I think, you know, we're just at the frontier of innovation on this front. If you look at a lot of the early sort of Facebook games, they were really just kind of, you know, lightweight leaderboards or whatnot. And to this day, a lot of people think that's what gamification is. But you know, when you really get social into the core of the game, when you need other players to have an interesting outcome, whether that means like a co-op sort of team-based game that's synchronous or not, whether your outcome depends on the action of someone else. Obviously, poker is like almost a perfect game for that, but there's a lot of innovation space left in this, and I think that it's really up to people to try to maybe find that. There's a lot of money in this space, and it's basically ripe for disruption.
Hey John, did Romney win the popular vote in your game?
No.
The reason we have electoral college. One last question.
Yeah, what about use of alternative currencies in U.S. gambling? Did you guys see your own box, like Bitcoins?
Yeah, so you know, when we were talking, Ken was talking earlier about making gambling illegal in the U.S., it's not what they did at all. What they did was to try to pass legislation to prevent the transfer of money to illegal online gambling establishments, which they didn't even define in the legislation. All they defined were the exceptions to it. So, in theory, if you don't use the financial systems of the U.S., there's no federal law that's being violated, especially given the opinion that was issued by the Department of Justice in December. So, I do think that's another opportunity for, you know, you might call it gray market, you might call it a little pushing the envelope a little bit, but there is opportunities because the only federal legislation, which has now been clarified by the Department of Justice, that deals with the transfer of money, now only deals with betting on the outcome of the sporting event, you know, picking up Oakland over New York. And so, if you can get outside of that and use another financial transaction system, kind of interesting.
All right, let's take the last one. Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question. Our exchanges, our financial markets, are all becoming casinos. Literally, they already are. They're mobile. They're all. You guys study those at all?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat that. So, are we? Let me see if I can try and paraphrase this. Are we studying the financial markets because essentially they are casinos making bets? So, are they following their lead with respect to gaming? I don't know.
Yeah, there's another opportunity, no doubt about it, is that dealing with futures, dealing with exchanges of betting against the outcome of certain events when not actually buying the stock, all ripe areas for innovation. And there's people out there starting to do that, of getting into a platform, of being able to look at different markets and the movement in markets, and pay a fee to determine an outcome on it. I think it's interesting innovation.
Okay, good. All right, let's hear it for our panelists. Thanks, everyone.
Hey guys, I just want to direct you to the back of the room. There's 3 amazing sponsors. EveryPlay, BAM, and UAppy. And UAppy is actually raffling off an iPad mini. So drop your card off before you're out the door. This place closes down at 8:30. So you guys have, I don't know, 25 minutes to communicate and connect. Thank you for coming, everybody. Next month is Mobile Year in Review. It's going to be awesome.
What Mobile Monday is. Raise your hand if you've been to a Mobile Monday event before. Cool, so we got a lot of newcomers. Raise your hand if you have not been, but you know what Mobile Monday is. Alright, so for those of you who didn't raise your hand, Mobile Monday is the event you're at tonight, just FYI. What we do is we bring together everyone in the industry so we can share knowledge, get to know each other, network, and talk about relevant topics in mobile.